Hey guys, Grumpy here with another episode of Fast 5. So in the previous episode, we had a ton of fun piloting the Apogee. That experimental build, I had my doubts. I wasn't sure if it would work out, but it did work swimmingly. We also made a couple of significant changes to the fleet, so without further ado, we're going to go ahead and jump into the episode. So here is Summer Olympus, currently level 6. The biggest addition so far has been adding automated ships, an incredibly powerful perk that allows us to incorporate Remnant ships into our fleet. Because our fleet is so small, we want powerful ships, and Remnant ships just also happen to be some of the most powerful ships in the game. So that's why we decided to take that. So here's the fleet as is right now. We have the Brawler, which I'm piloting again, the Monitor with our Reckless Officer in it, the Fulgent, which I'm really happy with. I'm still experimenting with it, and then the Apogee and the Venture. So we finally found extended shields so we can actually use the Monitor in combat. Here's the Fulgent. This is a very experimental design. Don't think you have to copy it exactly. I'm still just playing around with what works. Here's the Apogee. I ended up giving it back to our previous officer because she's much better suited for it. And finally, we have the Venture to round out the fleet. So, getting into the episode proper, this clip and the next clip is me heading to the Galatian Academy station. Because we have the Fulgent in our fleet and we're going to have Remnant ships in our fleet, I wanted to fish for an early AI core. And one of the ways you can do that is by accepting a mission where you're supposed to secure a technology cache and turn the cache into a bunch of scientists. I assume that came from the Galatian Academy. It absolutely doesn't. You get that mission from a random bar encounter. So this entire thing was pointless. I could have just gotten further ahead. Anyway, I go on to do these missions, and I'll show kind of some of that combat as well. So while heading to our Galatian Academy missions, I find a warning beacon with a high threshold. This is going to be really good for us. I believe it's close to the core worlds, so we're definitely going to come back here. But this place is really good um, because it'll allow us to farm for those cores, these AI cores that we need. So here we have a Remnant subordo consisting of 2 Brilliants, a Fulgent, and I think 2 Scintillas. So not that big of a fleet. It is dangerous. I mean, they are remnants at the end of the day, but I feel very confident now that we have our monitor online, and now that I'm piloting the Brawler again. So I jumped to a early aggressive start, using those sabos to overload these frigates. I want to clear them off the battlefield as soon as possible. I go ahead and assign the monitor to the Alpha AI Core Brilliant, and then I pair the Fulgent up with the Venture. Lots of high explosive damage coming from them. Also, the Fulgent, I don't think I explained this at any point, is using mini pulsars. They're a combination ballistic energy weapon. So the Fulgent having a high energy focus gets them apart a lot of additional kinetic pressure, a lot of additional shield pressure using those mini pulsars. Um, so I give a command here that I'm not entirely sure why I gave. I should have focused the Venture and the Fulgent on this Brilliant. I didn't for some reason, and I decide, oh, well, I know I can solo a Brilliant, which normally I can, but this Brilliant is very tough. It has a Plasma Cannon, and it also has a Heavy Needler, not where you want to be. Also, there's a Scintilla right behind it. I end up getting flamed out here, and it's, over, it's over immediately. What I should have did was ignore the Brilliant, destroyed the Scintilla that was firing off all of those salamanders, and then come back into the fight. So to try to gain control of the situation, because I no longer have the Brawler, I end up signing an eliminate order between the Fulgent and the Apogee, and then jumping in the monitor to try to assess the situation. I distract the Brilliant long enough that it doesn't broadside my venture, and then I keep the brilliant and the scintilla pretty busy. I run out of command points here because I was spending them pretty, flippantly. But we get that back. I send everybody to go take care of the brilliant, and then I fly back to my fleet. This is really nice if you have slower ships. Flying back to your fleet will lure enemy ships um, back into the fight. If you try to fly away, then you're not going to. You're just giving the enemy an opportunity to dump flux because they're not being pressured by the rest of your fleet. If at all possible, try your best to fly back to where your ships are. That'll make fights a lot easier to deal with. There you see the double reapers just absolutely decimating that brilliant. Very few ships can survive such pressure. And then all that's left is a scintilla, which I mean, it can't stand up to the heavy blaster, the plasma cannon, and the ion pulsars. So we recover the brawler. I also spend another story point on this brilliant here. It's going to be an excellent ship to add to our fleet. I'm really looking forward to that. And then we get our first cores. So we get a beta core and a gamma core. So a really nice haul there. Now that we have the brilliance and some AI cores in our fleet, it's time to dress up this ship. So automated ships work a little differently than regular ships. First of all, they don't require any crew. Second of all, they can't be piloted by officers. Instead, what you can do is you can insert cores into them. The level of the core, so gamma, beta, or alpha, will determine how many skills you can assign to that core. So, for example, here we have a beta core. It can accept up to 5 skills. You get to reassign these skills at will. They don't cost anything. So feel free to adjust the skills as necessary. Do be aware, the level of core that you insert into your Remnant ship will affect its deployment point cost, and the automated ship perk only allocates you 100 deployment points. So if you exceed your deployment point cap, be it because you have multiple Remnant ships or because your ships have very high level cores in them, it will eat into the combat readiness of those ships. Do keep that in mind when trying to balance power for effectiveness in battle. Moving on from there, we go back to completing Galatian Academy missions, and we end up finding a Starliner. Uh, the Starliner is a very niche ship. It's not useful for the most part, but what it is really good for is for colonizing. It has a very large crew capacity, so it is perfect for bringing those 1,000 crew that you need to uh, start a colony world. While traveling through the clouds, I find a salvage fleet. Um, I don't exactly know why I chose to fight this fleet. Um, it was kind of out of the way, and I just drifted into it. I don't, I don't think I expected them to be hostile. I was kind of just checking out what they were doing, and they turned out to be pirates. Of course, everyone in this sector that I come across is a pirate, so go figure. But being one that's not gonna shy away from a fight, I decided to engage them anyway. So here, I don't know what I was thinking. I thought I guess I could kill the wolf, but that was definitely a mistake. What I should have did was assess the situation, see that the wolf is out of reach, back away, let my flux vent, and then engage the lasher, which can't teleport away. Then probably engage the two shepherds, and then finally figure out where the wolf is and go engage that. So having to quickly assess the situation, I give an order to the monitor to go ahead and tank the venture, and then I go into kind of panic mode and I decide to give engage orders on the frigates that matter, or the frigates that are easy kills. I wasn't exactly confident that my ships on autopilot could get it done, so I decided to jump over to the Venture, just um, piggyback with the monitor screening for me, and just use the Venture to rely on those harpoons and its heavy autocannons to pretty much deal with these frigates. Unfortunately, the monitor heads the other way, and I just realize I am not where I need to be. I overload, and then next come the missiles, and I very quickly lose another ship to this fight very early on. Um, this is just what happens. Yeah, those Reapers came out of nowhere and made short work of the Venture. This is what happens when you don't fight with any particular strategy, when you get overconfident. Um, I think to myself in this moment, oh, well, at least I have the Fulgent and the Apogee. You know, we can still carry this fight. It is just a bunch of frigates. And to my shock and horror, the Apogee is already lost. At this point, I'm kind of playing on tilt, and I'm very upset. Or not the Apogee, the Fulgent is lost. I'm kind of playing on tilt. I decide to jump in the Apogee and just commit. Um, Maybe retreating would have been a better bet, but I'm like, I just have to play perfectly. I'm in an Apogee, which has a huge advantage over a small number of frigates, but this is a monstrous amount of frigates. I think there's still 9 on the battlefield at this point. But I'm like, if I could pick apart the fleet, let the monitor distract everybody, um, you know, bring it back down to basics, I might be able to pull through on this. I try to stay away from the monitor because it does bring a lot of unwanted attention, and you know, me being in an apogee, um, I'm I'm pretty fast, but I'm not that maneuverable. So if a couple of ships get some open shots on my engines, then the apogee isn't going to last that long. So we swing around, we get rid of the brawler. I decide it's still a little too spicy over there. I try to use my squall to see if I can overload one of these ships. Uh, I see that the brawler kind of separates from the rest of the, or not the brawler, the Cerberus separates from the rest of the pack. So I go ahead and take it down. We end up overloading one of the wolves. I was a little bummed out because I couldn't kill it, but and we also got flamed out. But I look at this situation as a nice way to pivot. I try to see if I can overload the wolf as I rotate past it. Not enough punch there, but we do swing back and we decide to focus on it. Not so sure that was the right choice. Probably should have went after a less mobile target. But the squalls kick back on, and we don't have ECSAM package, so the squalls are pretty much hit or miss. But thankfully, we do get an opportunity to overload the wolf, so it can't get away so easily. At this point, I'm a little hesitant to lower our shields, just because those mining drones they don't do a lot of damage, but because we don't have any armor left, they will start damaging our hull directly, and that damage can add up pretty quickly. So I just decided to tank the lasers as is. They don't do any damage to shields, so I'm not in any particular threat. I chase down this last shepherd, overload it very easy, and get away from the drone so that we can reset our flux and get back into combat. I fly through the drones. That wasn't really necessary. Maybe should have just flew around, just to make sure that we go into the battle with no flux at all. But again, the drones don't do hardly any damage to shields, so we don't have to worry about that. I decided to ignore the venture for now. Um, nope. Okay. I thought I ignored the venture so I could kill the drover, but I guess instead I went for the venture. That's a mistake. The venture is fully invested in the monitor. There's absolutely no reason to fight it right now. It would be much, much, much better to take the drover off the battlefield, which is a lot less tanky, and can present a slightly larger threat. Just having so many fighters in the area. But anyway, the plasma cannon bullies the venture. I try to hit the same spot every time to maximize that damage to armor, or to hull rather. So hitting that back left wing, uh, that back left part of the venture over and over again is very important there. I pressure the drover. This is the danger that I was talking about. Because I decided to invest so much time into the venture, I'm almost completely fluxed out. Thankfully, the drover is a drover and isn't like a eradicator or a much or a manticore or an enforcer, like a much more dangerous ship. Because approaching that ship with that level of flux probably would have been an overload and probably would have been the end of the apogee and potentially the end of the run. I do have a few ships left in storage, but they're not nearly as powerful as the fleet that I've accumulated so far. Um, so the last thing on the battlefield is this poor little shepherd. We go ahead and make sure we're working that, and we end up turning this battle around. Again, a lot of risks taken for no particular reason, and losing ships very early on in the fight due to negligence really didn't make this any easier. We go ahead and pursue just to see what else we can get, and then we shamefully recover our ships. Again, just be cognizant of what you're doing. Be cognizant of the ships that are around you, and just be aware that you can't take on everyone in a brawler all at once. It is a frigate, so be mindful of that. Anyway, overall, still, I enjoyed that battle quite a lot, and would probably take it again. So after some grueling combat, we do a little more exploring, and we end up heading back home. Um, we have just enough fuel to make it back, but our supplies are very low. We do pull the fleet together though, and we end up making it back to, I believe, Kulan, where we can rest and refit. And interestingly, when we get back, one of the first missions that we find is the mission that I was looking for. So this is the one that says flag down an academic. It'll give you the location of a technology cache. Inside of this technology cache is the alpha AI core that we're chasing. So we'll go ahead and fetch that in the next episode. So to conclude today's episode, we are currently level 8. The two perks that I picked is Combat Endurance and Target Analysis. Combat Endurance to offset the penalty from safety overrides. It adds an additional 60 seconds of peak performance time, so it's very nice there. And then Target Analysis, which adds a staggering amount of damage to the brawler. Um, it just solidifies the brawler as that crowd control vehicle, solidifies it as a DPS ship, allows us to quickly get rid of those pesky destroyers and flank around those more powerful, slow, less maneuverable cruisers. So I will continue to go down the red line. Ultimately, I'm chasing after missile specialization. So a very strong perk there. Adding additional sabos to the brawler will be critical to improving its success in such a small fleet. And moving on to the fleet, I
try my best to refit the Brilliant. I'm not really happy with the design that I end on, but it is a work in progress for now. Ultimately, I want to add a Tachyon Lance to the Brilliant and just make it a long range threat. Just able to project a lot of kinetic damage at a distance, and through the Tachyon Lance, provide some EMP damage. I need better fighters. I also need an Alpha Core over this Beta Core, and I eventually need to scrape off the D mods from this Brilliant if I want to make the most of it. But here's the fleet so far. It is the Brawler, the Monitor, the Fulgent upgraded to a Brilliant, and then of course the Apogee and the Venture. So I hope you guys enjoy that, and I will see you in the next episode of Fast 5. Other than that, Grumpy out.